business philanthropist and Kayak co-founder, is on a new mission, merging travel agents, messaging, and AI. He has a part-time side gig as an Uber driver and lectures on entrepreneurship at MIT. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the co-founder and CEO of Lola, Paul English.
Doug, thanks. Paul. Good to be here.
So, Lola is not your first travel startup. There was another one. It turned out kind of okay. Can you just, I want to go back first, before we get into Lola and messaging and AI, which is seems to be the topic du jour, but can you just walk us back a bit to, say, 2004, 2005? You and Steve, I guess, were in a bar at one point, hatching out your plans. What did you see that was wrong in the marketplace or missing, and what was your and Steve's thesis for Kayak?
Yeah, so the original idea from Kayak actually was from Steve Hafner, my co-founder. His idea was, and again, this is back in 2004, late 2003, early 2004, to build a meta search where it's just a search engine. There's no booking at all, but it compares things side by side, and you click to go to another site to buy. That was the original idea. When I met Steve, I was really impressed with him. I thought he was amazing, and I remember going home that night and playing around with Expedia, which I'd used before, and Expedia being the market leader in the US, I wanted to understand it. And I came back to Steve the next day.
Did it satisfy all of your online travel needs?
No, I came back to Steve the next day and I said, this is going to be easy. I thought there was a lot of white space for doing something fast and simple.
So why not go into booking? Why not build another OTA?
Well, the original vision, Kayak, we did ultimately go into booking with it, which Kayak does today through partners. But initially, part of it was almost from a branding standpoint. We found that most people who use an OTA would also book direct. They'd use the OTA to search, but then they go directly because you get benefits out of booking directly that you don't get from an OTA. And they didn't trust the OTAs. And so we wanted to position ourselves really differently to say, there's no bias here at all. You don't have to pay us any money. We're simply lead gen, and we'll show you all the places you can buy that hotel, all the places you can buy that flight.
So what do you think then of this kind of meta search strategy, of going into booking? It was pretty hot for a while, but it's kind of retreated.
Well, it's interesting watching TripAdvisor. I know that they're retreating from their position. The problem with TripAdvisor, an amazing company, but they're known for a particular thing. And when you're known for something, it's very difficult to change your identity. Even if you see someone else doing it successful, people don't go to TripAdvisor for booking. They go there for research. And you can't take, tens of millions of customers and say, we're actually a new site today. We're going to do something different than what you came here for.
So now when you started, there were also, you weren't the only one.
No.
So there was like Mobissimo and Fairsearch or Sidestep, which you eventually acquired. Fairchase, a bunch. So, yeah. So what set you guys apart? Like, why was it Kayak that kind of broke out in the U.S. and had the IPO and all of the success?
Yeah, I think so. I was the product guy at Kayak. I was the CTO there, and I think we did some pretty good things at product, particularly in the early years, that differentiated us. But I would say the thing really, as an entrepreneur, and I've started several companies, the thing I spent most of my focus on was literally just recruiting. And I always thought it'd be tough for us as new guys in the travel space to say, we're going to build the next big site, what ended up being, I think, the #2 travel site in the US. It'd be difficult to make that such an audacious claim. But what I could claim is to say, okay, we have a small team, but my 10-person team will be stronger than the top 10 people at Expedia or whatever site we're competing with. So I put a lot of energy into recruiting. And I think that if you really do a good job at that, and you get people aligned in a common vision, they'll execute.
How do you think Kayak is doing today? Does Steve ever call you up and ask your advice on?
Yeah, Steve and I still hang out. We drink together in Miami, New York, and Boston, so we still see each other quite a bit. I would say they've learned some lessons from Booking.com. I think Kayak is becoming more of an execution machine, really good at optimization. It was a little bit different than when I was there. I mean, I probably would not be a good CTO at Kayak right now. I'm better at the earlier innovation stage, not so much the later optimization
Yeah, so
stage.
I wanted to ask you, like I would imagine, so so Kayak had an IPO, then was acquired. I would imagine probably most of the people in this room, like if they were approached by Booking.com for a job offer, it'd be kind of flattering, right? I mean, right? Right? It'd be flattering. So for you come on, it would be flattering, right? Come on. Yes, of course it would, okay? They're an amazing company. So you're like, so you're bought and you didn't want to work there. Why?
Yeah, it's, well, first of all, it's kind of humbling to be in the Booking.com city. I'm in awe of Booking.com as a company. They're really just an unbelievable execution machine. It's been awesome to watch them grow over the years. I've started 5 companies before Lola, and I'm just really focused on the 0 to 100 phase. I like the innovation, the beginning phase. I don't like so much org charts and optimization. It's just not how I'm wired. So when we got acquired by Priceline, which really is Booking.com, the great thing about being acquired by Priceline Group is they're really a very well-run company, and they run each of the subsidiaries completely independently, which is great. But it still will be working for a big company, and I'm just not a big company guy.
So, one of the things that kind of surprised me, I want to just switch gears a bit. And so you also had a book written about you, Truck Full of Money, which is, it's a really interesting book. It kind of walks through Paul English's life and the experience with Kayak. For me, it was a little strange, to read because I know you, and normally when I read a biography, the subject is dead. So, what was it like? And it's a very intimate portrayal of you. Most CEOs, and founders, they come with entourages or they have a very PR-shaped persona. But you open up, a lot of your, I don't know, less attractive elements or some of your insecurities maybe. Why would you do that?
Yeah, so Tracy Kidder is a phenomenal author, and I had read 3 or 4 of his books before I met him, so I've always been a fan of his work. When he first approached me about the project as a follow-on, in some ways, to Soul of a New Machine, where he won the Pulitzer for that book 30 years ago, and he wanted to go back and write about technology and engineering again. I first said no because the idea of being a subject of a book is just too bizarre, and I tried to introduce him to friends of mine who I think are literally more interesting than me, and I tried to convince him to write about my friends, and eventually he convinced me to do it.
Is Steve jealous that he wrote about you and not about him?
I don't know. Someone should write a book about Steve. But I had 2 rules with Tracy with the book. One is I said, don't write about my divorce because that could potentially be painful for my kids and my ex. And then I said, don't make me look better than I am, because I was really nervous that someone would write a book that would make me look really great and I'd have to live up to it. And I was in Haiti a couple weeks ago. One of my Haitian friends told me that he just read the book, and he said, Tracy did a really good job making you not look better than you are. It's like, I'm not sure if that was a compliment or not, but yeah, I was pretty raw with him during the...
there are a couple of scenes that kind of stand out for me. So there's one scene that describes you. I think you had sold Kayak to Priceline, and you were beginning to raise money for Blade. And there's a scene where you're walking into a VC's office because you're looking to raise money, and it kind of describes you. You're like, you don't have a PowerPoint, you don't have a business plan, and you're like proud of it. And you're going in, and you're like, you can now invest in my startup if you would like. And it's not typically how startups approach VCs. It comes off, were you just like supremely confident or a little arrogant, or what's?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. I think people who know me well don't use the word arrogant often, but they do often say confidence. One of the things Tracy wrote about the book is the fact that I'm bipolar. And I was first diagnosed probably 25 years ago, and I've been on and off meds and therapy and all that stuff, trying to manage it. But there are times when, I know in the early years of Kayak, I was in a total manic phase for a year during one of the early years. And I think at the creation, when I left Kayak and I left to start what a lot of people do coming off a big hit is run an incubator. And when I raised money for my incubator, I think, again, I was in a total manic phase for about a year. And when you're in a manic phase, one of the things you suffer from can be extreme grandiosity. And VCs can sometimes eat that up. They like seeing entrepreneurs that are extremely driven and extremely confident.
So there's another quote that I want to read from the book, which And for those of you who were at the interview we did in November at the Phocuswright conference, I'm going to do it again because it's just such a fabulous one. So there's this quote and this is you speaking. It says, "There is a part of this that feels awful. I feel fake. I know that I get too much credit for Kayak by many people. This stupid success right now is an elephant that follows me around. I can't let it block my view or change who I am." You know, most of the people, people come to conferences like this because, they're ambitious. They want that success. They want to be the one, sitting where you are. Maybe not being interviewed by me, I'm not sure. But so, why were you so uncomfortable with all that success?
I think, as the co-founder, CTO of Kayak, I think I just get too much credit. And when I think about what we did to design the product, I had a big role, but there are other people on my team who I think had a bigger role than me. And so I look at my value add is assembling that team and trying to align them on a goal, not so much that I did all the work. So I'm embarrassed. I actually don't like being center of attention. It's kind of bizarre that Tracy convinced me to do this book thing. I like my team getting attention more than I get attention. And being success is great. There's a lot of, I've started 5 companies before Lola, 4 were successful. One of them was an epic failure where I just made money and then lost it all. So I have deep scars from that experience. But success is great and enables a lot of things. It enables me to support organizations like the one we just heard about, working on refugee programs. But there are some painful things about success too, like everyone wants something from you, and that can be annoying.
What advice would you have? You have a lot of startups here. Like, what advice would you give to a startup founder that maybe is in the place you were in, at the beginning of Kayak?
I'd say the biggest thing, I'll give 2 pieces of advice. The first one is, however much time you're spending on recruiting, double it. Because the difference between creating a company worth $10 million and a company worth $1 billion is just the first one, they recruited a little harder. So spend more time recruiting. The second thing I would say is do primary research. Don't have people in your team talk to customers.
It's also important to buy secondary research, though, as well. I just want to point that out, but okay, please continue.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. My team knows that when I go on the road, I often accost people at airports. I ask them about their travel habits, and it's very frequent. I'll pull out my phone and interview people about, oh, so you use Concur, what's that like? And I'll catch it on video, and I'll email my team immediately so that they get videos from Paul's road trips of me talking to customers directly. And I find that if you are the entrepreneur, the one who's pulling together the vision for the company, having that direct connection to customers, it's what's going to keep you on the right path. I don't let my customers design my products, but I sure want them to vet my products.
Okay, so I want to spend some time talking about, obviously, Lola and that new product and what you're doing. And it's actually kind of an interesting place because there are a lot of other messaging startups that are out there as well. So am I actually describing it correctly? It's, I guess, a virtual travel agent in your pocket, so travel planning and booking via Messenger?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what's your thesis for this? What's wrong with online travel that you're solving?
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about Lola V1, and then I'll mention briefly Lola V2, which comes out at the end of this summer, which is you could describe it as a pivot or a refocusing. It's going to be quite different from what's in the App Store now. The original thesis for Lola was that people like texting and they like messaging, and they spend more time messaging and their phone, whether it's through texting, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, whatever the app is, they spend more minutes a day doing that than they do using apps. So we did an experiment when we had the first messaging app for Lola, where we have 15 agents. They're scheduled 24/7 around the clock. And one week I asked them to text back to our customers and say, can I call you on the phone? And one week we messaged every single customer, and only one customer wanted to do a phone call. Messaging works really well. I mean, this morning I was in an Uber. I was in Dublin last night. I flew red-eye from Boston. I arrived in Amsterdam this morning, and I hauled out my Lola app, and I typed, I just landed in Amsterdam. Can you please call a hotel and see if I can check in early? And I didn't want to be on the phone because I'm on the back of an Uber. But the fact that I could just send one sentence, and an agent on the other side of the world calls the hotel and negotiates to get me in a room as soon as I walk in. It's pretty cool.
But so you also said, though, that you're planning like a V2 or you use the word pivot. Usually when companies use the word pivot, that means that V1 didn't go quite as planned.
Yeah,
so
my team hates when I say pivot, but
what didn't go right? Or
it's more, there's two things I learned from Lola. The first one is I was on a trip in New York last fall, and I was flying home to Boston, but I was texting with a friend in San Fran, trying to decide when I can make it out to visit her. And I decided, and the plane was just about to take off, and I went on JetBlue, click, 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 and I bought a Mint seat, which is a pretty awesome way to fly across the US these days. And then the plane took off, and then I felt guilty like I cheated on Lola, that I actually used an app from an airline instead of using Lola. But in that moment, I realized that messaging is great,
you find out?
but there are times when you want to do self-service. So that was a big lesson for me. And if Lola is really trying to be the be-all and end-all for travel, we need self-service and messaging both. So that's one change.
Well, but do travelers really want to plan and book through messaging? I mean, it really forces curation, and there's a debate. I know it's a very popular term, but we've actually seen that travelers are not. They really like choice. They want to see everything.
Yeah, that's the second lesson I learned. The people who really love the Lola vision are the people who travel a lot. Because if you travel twice a year, like most Kayak customers do, Lola's not going to be that exciting for you. But if you're on the road every week or every couple of weeks, and Lola gets to know your preferences, it works unbelievably well. You can simply message and say, I need to go visit Airbnb. And literally that's all you type, and we will get you a car, a hotel, an Airbnb, anything you need to pull the trip together because we know your preferences. So with very, very little text, you can get a whole trip pulled together. And if you're a very frequent traveler, it's as if you have an executive assistant who knows you really well. It can be a really abbreviated way to get exactly what you want.
So are you pushing into? I mean, you're describing frequent travelers and travelers who have an executive assistant. So that to me says business travel. Is that where V2 is headed?
Right. So we have 11 companies Lola's based in Boston, and we have 11 companies in Boston that are users as a company. Most of our users are leisure travelers, but there are these 11 companies that one of my product managers spends all his time with, and I spend my time with. And what I've learned is they're the ones that are most rabid about why they want, because they travel so frequently, they need something that knows all their preferences. They need kind of duty of care. They need, if something happens and you need to make a change last minute, they just want to send a message, have someone take care of it. Oh. And that is causing me to spend a lot of time with SMB, small, medium-sized businesses, and to say, what else isn't working for them? And is there other opportunities in SMB that's different from what Agencia or Concur or other companies trying to serve SMBs? Is there a better way? And I think we've come up with something.
Well, I was just going to ask, so what is that? Because there are lots of TMCs that service this and been in this space, for a long time and are kind of the big gorillas in that category. And they're also, we're hearing like every day, I'm seeing a news announcement, some TMC has got a new messaging service for their corporate clients. So,
well, TMCs, first of all, are not known for innovation, and they're not known for building consumer-grade software. I'm a consumer guy, and so when I build B2B software, it's going to be consumer-grade software. It's going to look like the sexiest, fun, simple, fast app, but aimed at business, and TMCs aren't doing that. If we have more time, I would show you a video I took yesterday in Logan Airport where I was asking someone I met what they use for business travel, and they talked about Concur. And I asked him, how do you like Concur? And it was amazing how much this guy disliked the constraints and violations and rules and policies. And I think there's a better way to do things than the TMCs and the apps that are put in place by the finance department, which is very different than what the traveler actually wants. And so what I'm spending my time looking at for frequent business travelers, what do they want? Ignore their boss, ignore the finance person. What would work so well for a business traveler that they would use this app all the time? And that's what I'm thinking about.
Douglas, we have a question from the audience.
Hi, I'm here.
I'm Julia. I work for a French media called Travel on Move. I have a specific question about Lola. You chose to put the human first in Lola, and instead of a machine. Do you plan to add some artificial intelligence in it?
Yeah, we have some AI or NLP, NLU, natural language programming, natural language understanding. There's a guy who ran NLU for Amazon for the Echo product that's now my director of AI. So we have pretty good technical chops when it comes to NLP and NLU. Right now, the amount of parsing that the machine is doing is minimal. When you're typing with a human. The NLP engine reads everything that's typed and makes recommendations to the human agent, and in many cases can save the human agent time. If it's a very simple question where the NLP is extremely confident, it can answer directly. But we're trying to get a large corpus of text to see what are all the types of things people are going to ask these human agents. And the larger that corpus of text gets, the better job we'll do about automating. But we always will have a human. There are things that humans can do that AIs will never be able to do, in terms of having compassion for the traveler, really understanding the motivation for your trip, what's stressing you out. They can make phone calls on your behalf. There are a lot of things that humans will be able to do that AI can't do.
So you do not have a chatbot or some automation that for the interaction with
It's behind the scenes. So when you're using the Lola app right now, you're literally chatting with a human agent. That human agent is using tools that my team built, and that agent uses a chatbot. But the chatbot is not directly exposed to the traveler.
Because it's not...
That's not good enough yet.
What's your sense of kind of the chatbot landscape today? It seems like everyone's releasing a chatbot.
Yeah, I think if you did something that's really vertical and narrow, chatbots work really well. If you do something that's a little bit more open-ended, the problem is, if you had a chatbot that was 90% accurate for travel, that would piss me off. I'd rather talk to a human that will understand me 100% of the time than a chatbot that will understand me 90% of the time. So we're feverishly working to get the chatbot better and better and better. We're not going to unleash it on the human travelers until I feel that it'll do a better job than humans.
So what about the role of AI in personalization? You talk a lot, about that and curation. I mean, that's been a big focus of V1. What's the role of... And it's kind of interesting actually for me with AI. I remember like 5 years ago when suddenly every analytics company was a big data company, and now like every company is an AI company, and I think half the people don't even know what AI is. So is it, and you already used two different terms which are actually quite different, right?
Yeah.
Natural language processing and natural language understanding, right? NLU and NLP, they're very different. So what, I don't know, we've only got a minute and 30 seconds left. I want to ask you what AI is.
I mean, the big thing for me is the way I think about AI, it's a computer algorithms that are trying to do a better job than humans. And NLP or NLU is one type of technology that uses AI. Translation's another one that uses AI. Self-driving cars uses AI. But the thing that we spend more of our energy on with AI is personalization. And how do we do clustering to find, if you're going to Miami for the first time, how can we use your hotel selections in Amsterdam to influence what we're going to pick for you in Miami? Or how can we find other people who, although you've never been to Miami, we know other people who are very, very similar to you, and when they stay in Miami, here's where they stay. So there's a lot of things we're doing with AI that are all around personalization, which is really important for frequent travelers and business travelers.
Time for one more from the audience.
Hi, Danilo here from Amadeus again. I'm just wanted to ask
from
you,
360.
as you're going to have the focus...
Sorry, we got two people. We got two questions. Well, only one. Mike, why don't you start?
Yeah, as you're going to have to focus with the humans helping the travelers, what sort of AI-assisted tool are you building for those agents or consultants? Are you building sort of a desktop tool? Is it more like on the mobile factor? Can you talk a little bit more about that side of Lola?
Yeah, it's a desktop tool. We have 3 engineering teams. There's the team building the mobile app. There's the team building the tools for the travel agents. And then there's the data science back-end team. We do have tools that are Lola proprietary that we make available to our agents, and as Lola scales up and we need to partner with other agency organizations, they will use some version of our tools.
Okay. One more question?
All right. Please stand.
Okay. I'm Jan from Travel 360 Benelux. I want to ask a specific question about your revenue model. Your commission-based until now, and I read that you're thinking about, adding the subscription model. I know that's a difficult nut to crack. Are you succeeding in it?
Yeah, what we learned this fall is that business travelers are very happy to pay subscription. There's many apps, Google apps, Gusto for payroll. I mean, it goes on and on, all the new SMB services where people are very used to paying per seat. Leisure travelers, not so much. We will add some type of subscription service. What we're trying to figure out is, one of the key things the business travelers want from Lola is plans change. You have to fly home early, you have to stay an extra night, whatever it is. They want someone to just take care of all that for them magically. The problem is that costs money to do that. So do you want to pay per incident or do you want to pay subscription? And I have a model in mind. I'm not going to announce it right now. We have to do a little bit more testing, but it'll be some combination of those two things.
All right, I want to wrap up. This is a game that we sometimes do at the Phocuswright conference. This is called word association or free association. So I'm going to say, a word, and you're going to say the first thing that pops into your head. So if I say, chocolate, you might say
Delicious.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Okay. AI.
Overhyped.
Alexa.
Amazing.
Chatbots.
Overhyped.
Metasearch.
Still important.
Travel management companies.
Clunky.
Travel agents.
Good ones are priceless.
Hotel Tonight.
Beautiful UI. I don't love the business.
Booking.com.
Humbling to be in their city.
Airbnb.
Stunning UI, stunning business.
Peer-to-peer.
Important for some parts of travel.
Google.
Everywhere.
TripAdvisor.
Trying to find their game.
Trivago.
It's awesome.
Kayak.
Optimization.
I think that was a dodge. Steve Hafner.
Brilliant and hilarious.
Paul English.
Kind.
The kind CEO, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul English.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.